What's good, everybody? This is Coach Phil, and welcome to another episode of Deep in the Game, man. We are on episode 29 right now, and as you can see, I've got the Grey Cup MVP, man. I got Cody Fajardo out here, man. Cody, how you doing?
Appreciate you, Coach Phil, man. It's excited to be here. Just talk some ball. I've seen what you did and the work you've done, and I'm excited to be on the show.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. You've had a great 2023, man. Ended it on a high note, and we'll get to that at some point, man. But this is your episode, man. We're gonna talk about you, your story, man, your background, and hit some highs and lows, and we're gonna do the damn thing. You ready to go?
Absolutely. I got a very interesting story in terms of my career, and so anytime I get an opportunity to share, it's always pretty fun.
Yeah, that's what it's all about here on Deep in the Game, brother. So we're going to start from the beginning, man. You was born and raised in Brea, California. Is that how you say it correctly?
Brea. Yeah, pretty close. Yep.
Brea.
Mm-hmm. Orange. Hey, you learn something new every day. But, so Brea, California, or in Orange County. And if you want to find a quarterback, you're going to go down to Orange County and you're going to recruit that area. The reason why is it's 75 and sunny. And so a lot of quarterbacks like to go down there and spin it as opposed to anywhere else.
See, got Tom Brady coming out of there, man. Obviously, one of the biggest ones, the GOAT to everybody, man. But for Cody Fajardo, man, coming out of Servite High School.
Yeah, Servite, that's right. Yes, sir.
Servite High School, man. I saw, man, y'all won 4 league championships, man. You won a state championship in your last year. But did you always kind of feel you were destined to go play college football? I saw your father played at Texas Tech and your grandfather played with the Colorado Buffaloes, man. Was it always a thing for you? Hey, I'm gonna go do the damn thing.
The Fajardo family is football through and through. Part of the reason I went to Servite, they have great academics, but it's also a Catholic high school. And so I wanted to get deeper and closer into my faith. But another shining spot of it is it's D1 football in California. So it's the best of the best. And I have an older brother who is going through there, and I grew up in the public school system my whole life, and then all of a sudden my parents are like, hey, you're going here, and I fought tooth and nail. And it's, to this day, probably one of the greatest decisions I never made because my parents made it for me, and they put me through that. And I honestly didn't know if I was going to play D1 ball until my state championship game my senior year. I got my first D1 offer from San Jose State. Driving to the game, I remember getting the call, and I was the California State Player of the Year. I had a lot of accolades. Our team was number 1 in state, number 3 in the nation, and I just wasn't getting any offers. I didn't really know why. I was maybe a little undersized, about 6 foot at the time, and they were just looking for the 6'4" prototypical quarterback. I was a little bit ahead of my time in terms of the dual threat stuff, but God's got a plan, and it always works out better than what you think it's going to be. And so I got a couple offers towards the end of it, and it kind of came down to Nevada, Arizona, and Nebraska. And I decided to come to Nevada, and that was the greatest decision that I made personally by myself.
Yeah, man. I saw you had options. You had a Nebraska, Arizona, Wazoo, UNLV, Central Michigan, Wyoming. There's some big time schools, man, especially like Wazoo, Nebraska. Obviously, what they're capable of doing when they have a pretty good year. But those are really good options, man. I also saw, man, to ask you, growing up, who was some inspirations for you at the quarterback position, just athletes or people you look to?
Yeah, so 2 that jump off the top of my head. One is Brett Favre. I love his passion. Now he's in a lot of news recently, and so not quite the best role model for kids nowadays. But growing up, watching him play and seeing how passionate he was about just the game, and that guy was a true gunslinger. I don't think I've ever been a gunslinger like him. And there's a lot of guys who are true gunslingers where you just don't care and you just go out and rip it. But that guy, man, it didn't matter what the weather was like, what his stats looked like. You could tell every touchdown, every yard meant something to him. And so I really appreciated that passion. And that's where I draw a lot of my passion from. And then the second guy was Tim Tebow. When I was going through high school, it was the glory years of Tim Tebow at Florida. And who doesn't want to see the prototypical golden boy go out there and spin it, and he just looked the part and everything but being a left-handed quarterback. That was about the only knock to him, obviously being a quarterback. But just the way he carried himself, the way he was a Christian man and wore his faith on his sleeve, that was something I knew that I wanted to do when I was given the opportunity. So those two guys right there jump off the screen. And then I would say the third guy would be Drew Brees. He gave us, and I call myself a smaller guy, he gave us smaller, accurate guys a chance, right? In a time when it was all about the Peyton Mannings, the 6'4", the guys who can, throw it, stand in the pocket. Then you got a guy 5'11" who goes out there and he's ripping it up. So he was a guy who gave me a lot of hope for sure as an undersized quarterback at the time. And you always need one of those.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Especially a Drew Brees style of quarterback, man. To run an offense like Sean Payton's, that says a whole lot right there. And then the Brett Favre, even you could talking about his on-field stuff, man. You can't take away what that man did. I mean, other than the I'm gonna retire and then I'm gonna come back thing. But and then with Tebow, man, that's just a tank running the ball, man. I saw him watch. You remember the show Two-A-Days on MTV, Hoover?
Oh yeah,
seeing him ball, that was ooh-wee. But so for you choosing going to Nevada, man, you redshirted your freshman year, but you got to see Colin Kaepernick play, man. And I know you probably get asked this a lot, man, but in the offense that you were in, and you basically went through playing that pistol, coming up when I was in high school, man, the pistol was so revolutionary. And the read option and and being able to pick what you want to do and what you don't want to do. How did you feel like that catered to your style of play, but also the benefit that you were the second quarterback ever to throw for over 9,000 yards and run for 3,000?
It was a huge part of my decision. There was two things that you touched on there. One, the ability to redshirt. I think that's so important for guys. Now it's different game, so it's hard to explain that to high school kids. But being able to get to college, just understand how college works, go to classes, go do my homework, go to football practice. Like, it's a lot on a college athlete. And so Nevada was one of the few people that were upfront about me and said, look, we got this guy by the name of Colin Kaepernick, which everybody knew who he was. And you're going to redshirt behind him. And what you're going to do is you're going to compete for the job afterwards. They didn't promise me anything. You had some schools, I promise you'll be a starter here by year 1 or year 2. And, kind of these car salesman pitches. And that wasn't what Nevada did. And I'm a blue collar, down to earth guy. And I just want you to shoot me straight. That's it. You just shoot me straight. Tell me what the situation's like, and then we'll go from there. So that was the biggest thing. And then, like you said, the pistol offense. When I watched it, it's funny. San Jose State was my first offer. They were playing on ESPN, and they're like, hey, we're on ESPN. Check us out. So I turn on the game, and they're playing Nevada, and it's like 66-7. Nevada's killing them. And I'm watching Colin Kaepernick run for another 60-yard touchdown, and I'm like, I want to play for that team. So one of those things that kind of hurt them in the recruiting process was they asked one of their recruits to watch the game, and they're getting blown out by a team that I ended up playing for and going to. So it's just crazy how life works. But yeah, the pistol offense, and like you mentioned, it's something I kind of hang my hat on. I think the number's different now, and there's more guys now. But at the time, we were the only two guys with 9,000 yards passing, 3,000 yards rushing. And if you think about all the great quarterbacks that have gone through the college system, even Tim Tebow himself, a guy I looked up to, he wasn't even close to those numbers. And so that's something that, I hang my hat on and had a good college career and was really excited about the work I laid down.
It's a beautiful thing what you're able to do out there and being in that system. Now, as far as like a little dig into a little bit of the X and O's of the pistol, what was it about the pistol offense that you could explain to everybody or give a little detail about what made it so successful at that time, or what were some things that you had to see as a quarterback to be able to make it successful for yourself?
Yeah. And those are the questions I love to hear. And that's how I know your name is Coach Phil, because those are questions that you don't usually get, right? But yeah, so basically the pistol, because we had the guru behind it, the head coach who invented the pistol, we were running things that were so much more in depth than the other teams around the nation who just kind of copied us. But what appealed to me and what I think made it so difficult is when you have a bigger running style quarterback and you put your running back, a smaller guy behind you, linebackers can't see his first step. They don't know exactly where his first step's going to be. So they're a little bit delayed to the hole. They're a little bit delayed to react. And that's all you need, as as an offensive player, is that one extra little click in order to break one. And so that was the biggest thing. Now, what I loved most was the ability to run the football as a quarterback. Not a lot of offenses had that. If you look up some of my stats, I'd carry the ball anywhere from, 17 to 25 times in a game. I was a second running back, so to speak. And so that was, something that I really liked. And I thought a big part of my game. I was not a polished passer. And I honestly didn't become a polished passer until last couple of years in my CFL. NFL career, and I've always been kind of a run first guy. But now you look at the stat sheet, and I got 3 carries for 18 yards. That's a little bit more prototypical in the pocket passer, and the things transition as you get older. But you also learn a lot. And I've learned a lot, and I've learned how to complement my feet with my arm and take off when I need to run. But those are the things in the pistol offense that really drew me to it, and I was so excited to be a part of it.
See, that's great to hear that, man. Because when I was coming up around that time, man, I was in high school, and then being able to see Colin Kaepernick do what he did in the next 2-3 years, going to NFC Championship, going to the Super Bowl. You see how sophisticated the pistol became, how it became where at Nevada, it was pretty much a formation, a different look. But then when you see an NFL and they find ways to time it right and use it, and then when you see RG3 and you saw Colin, you see all these other quarterbacks, but now they've made full house formations. They've done it with adding another fullback in there, where at that time it was just, all right, we got quarterback, we got running back. And it was simplified, but now it's more sophisticated. I like seeing that. It's risky now, but would you say, was it at that time, was it, hey, we're just going to read that DN, whether he's 9-tech or if he's shading the outside shoulder, or was it, we're looking at the DB over here? Was it a look, or was it just, hey, we're going to do it regardless?
Yeah, so we based it off of the interior front, really. So we were taking off the 1 technique or the 3 technique. So a lot of times what we would do is we would run our inside zone, our hard runs to the 1 technique so we can get a double up to it. And then we'd run our zone read stuff to the 3, send the line to the 3, and that allows that 1 technique not as close to the defensive end. So if the defensive end were to crash, you have so much more room on the outside. And so I think that was something that gained our offense, and people didn't really know that. They just knew we ran the pistol, and they didn't really know the intricacies of it. The second thing, I think that the biggest thing was we moved our tight ends around all over the place, and we were kind of the first of its kind to do that, because most of the time you just put your tight end on the ball and he'd just block. But then we started pulling him off the ball, and he would come across the formation. He'd go to the formation, so he'd be able to run zone read away, zone read to it, and it made defenses kind of think a little bit. And to add on to that, we always had a pass game option in every single run. So that was something I would look for pre-snap and be like, all right, if the corner's off 8 yards, we're going to have hitches in our run game because we don't want our receivers just blocking the whole time. So let's just catch throwing out there, and it's just like an extended handoff. And that was something I really enjoyed doing in the pistol offense, was being able to still throw the ball even though you had a run play called. And now it looks like our offensive line's coming off, and they're coming off with run game. Their hats are low, and everyone's like, well, it looks like run, and they're throwing the ball here. Right. So it's really hard to game plan against us because of that, because now all of a sudden you're like, well, if we stack the box, but we leave our corners high, then they're just going to throw easy ones out. Now, if we leave our corners tight, they're going to throw over our heads. So something that they definitely thought about, and I was really excited about them doing it. But in terms of the running game that you were talking about, a lot of times it depend on more of the interior alignment as opposed to the outside, like the 9 techniques, the 7 techniques.
So you see now we're talking, because I used to hate seeing cross blocks. you think you got I play, so we would play like, we have a 4-2-5, and I'm thinking, I'm at will. I'm thinking, all right, I got a free shot. Nope. That cross block is so crucial. It makes up for so much, especially if the tight end's on this side on the right, he's going my way on weak side, and I'm thinking I got a free shot. No, you got to account for it, and that's a beautiful thing about it, man. So for you, after you got out of leaving, you left, you went undrafted, you went to the Oakland Raiders. Now, that organization in itself had a lot at that time, was not in a good place. What was it like? It wasn't really a long stint for you, but what was it like playing for Oakland, just being in Oakland, being in that organization, and then making the transition to the CFL? How'd you get there?
Yeah, you know what? It was quite a whirlwind, because when I was coming out, I was like a 4 to 6 round projection. And I remember when I was at the combine, one of the doctors found something in my foot. It was called like a Jones fracture. So a possible Jones fracture. And as soon as someone finds something in the combine, they relate it to all the other 31 teams. And so from that moment, my agent called me afterwards, and they weren't going to allow me to work out at the combine. And I've never had any foot issues, nothing like that. It was just something with when you get there, they give MRI, X-ray, everything. They put you on a table. You got 4 doctors pulling on each like limb, and if you grimace at all, they're like MRI, X-ray it, right? Because it's a pretty legit show. And so I remember that, and I remember my agent called me, and he's like, "Look, you're gonna have to sign a waiver that if something happened to your foot, that's the only way you're going to be able to participate." And I spent 3 months training for this. And I'm like, there's no way I'm not participating. And so I went out, I was top, 5 in every category. I felt really good. I threw the ball really well, but I think nobody was willing to take a chance on a later round guy with injury questions. And so when I signed to the Oakland Raiders, I had to sign a clause that if something happened to my foot, that they wouldn't pay me out on a settlement. And I never had any foot issues. And it was just one of those weird things that kind of happened. And you look back on your story and you're just like, what would have happened if they never found that, right? Like what's the option for that? And so I think when I went through the draft day process, I remember I was getting a call from the San Francisco 49ers in the 4th round, and Kaepernick was there at the time. And I'm like, they were pretty high on me in the draft. I was like, here we go. And they called me and they're like, hey, if you don't get drafted, we would love for you to consider us for undrafted free agency. And this is in the 4th round. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'll never forget to this day. In that 4th round, they took a punter who's still punting for him now. So rightfully so. But you think like, man, they took a punter over me. And it just kind of lit that fire under me. I went to the Raiders. I thought I was in a good situation there where we had Derek Carr, Christian Ponder, and Matt McGloin and myself. So we had 4 quarterbacks. Those 3 guys had no practice squad eligibility. So I was like, all I have to do is just show them a little bit, and I could be a practice squad guy, kind of learn the game and spend a year on the practice squad, which I was totally fine with. Well, Christian Ponder came in and did not play well at all. And so all of a sudden there was a competition for number 2 between Matt McGloin and Christian Ponder, and I got my reps completely cut down to I got 6 reps of 7-on-7 all training camp. And I got a couple minutes in games here and there, but I never felt like I really got a fair shake, but rightfully so. They were trying to figure out their roster. And so I just was kind of the new guy, undrafted free agent, who just kind of got put on the back burner. But so after that, I tried out for, I think, 9 NFL teams. And they kept signing the older guy, the more veteran guy, the guy who spent a year or 2 years in the league. And at that point, my agent's like, do you want to play? Are you interested in Canada? And I said, I'm just want to play ball. I don't care where it is. I just want to play football before all my good prime years are over. And he said, well, the Toronto Argonauts own your rights. And he kind of explained how the neg list goes. And he said, look, this is the only place you can sign. So I remember I signed in 2015. They had like 3 games left. I signed towards the end of the year. I checked it out for a couple games. I remember going to the donut box for my first playoff CFL experience. And when I came out, I was just a practice squad guy. So I was just in street clothes. But because Toronto was so close, they took everybody. And I remember looking at that and I was like, I want to be a part of this. This is pretty damn special. Like they got some really cool things going on here in Canada. And so I told my agent, I said, let's sign the contract. Let's get it going. And then everyone kind of knows my story about sitting behind Ricky Ray and spitting there for a couple of years and then shipped off to BC, yada, yada, yada. But it was a great decision to you have to humble yourself as an American player to come up to the CFL. There has to be this sense of, I love football and I'm doing this because I love football, because my whole life I wanted to be an NFL quarterback. And now all of a sudden someone tells you you're not good enough and you got to go up to the CFL. You got to swallow your pride because you don't know anything about it. And then you get up there and you truly fall in love with the game. And, in 2019, I had, 7 or 8 NFL teams call me about some interest in going and trying out and being part of their training camps. And I said, I worked my whole career to be a starting quarterback. And I finally got my opportunity after 2019. I'm not going to give it away just because I want to go back to the NFL who didn't think I was good enough in the first place. And so I committed to the CFL and I'm very thankful that I am, because now I can call myself a Grey Cup champion as a starting quarterback, which means a lot to me.
See that? I love to hear that. I've had some of the guys on here and they say, man, when they got up to Canada the first time, they didn't know where anything was. They didn't know how the game worked. But the fact that a lot of them have said they ingratiated themselves in it once they got there, because you see how amazing the fans are, the culture of the team, and just being with guys. And you do get humbled a little bit because in the States, we're so used to we're put up on this pedestal of we're the best in anything that we do, and then you go to a different country and see, ooh, there's some comp here. So kudos to you, man, for taking that and not being. There's some guys that now there is some guys that do go up there and they have a air about themselves, and then they just come back with their tails between their legs. But there's a funny thing. I had an actual request to ask this question for a lemon told me you played special teams.
Yeah, that's a crazy story within itself. I remember it was 2016, so it was my first year with the Argonauts. I think there was 5 of us quarterbacks. And I remember just going through training camp. I had a pretty decent training camp, but nothing to like kind of write home about. I was still learning the game. And I got a call from Scott Milanovich and Marcus Brady and Jim Barker. And they said, "Hey, would you be interested in playing special teams?" I said, "Look, I will do anything you need me to do in order to make this football team." My only caveat, my only like fine print writing, I said, "I will not be on kickoff return," because that is like you are just standing out there just asking to get run over. And so I said, "Look, I'll play any special teams that you want me to. Just don't put me on kickoff return." They're like, "We're not thinking about that. We just want you on punt team." And I said, "Okay." I was interested in it. But they never really said I made the team or not. And so we go there. It's the first day, and I was talking to my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, they never really told me if I'm cut, or they just asked me if I could play special teams, and I told them yes, but they never really said, "Hey, bring your playbook," everything that people think. And so I'm just like, I'm just going to show up on day one and see what happens. And so I go to the facility, and I'm sitting there, and it's funny because Marcus Brady kind of played a joke on me. He's like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Was I cut?" I asked him straight up. I was like, "Was I cut? You guys never really told me." He's like, "No, I'm just kidding with you. You're going to be our number 3, and we're going to try and teach you some pump protection stuff. You'll be our short yardage quarterback and sit behind Ricky and sit behind Logan Kilgore and guys like that." So it's one of those stories where they told me, "All right, we're going to give you couple games, probably like 4 or 5 games to kind of get your feet wet in practice. We're going to throw you in here and there." I never blocked anybody in my life. I've been a quarterback my whole life, right? So sure enough, our first game, a punt gets blocked. And I'm thinking in my head, like, "Oh, here we go." And then second game, we were playing at Sask, old Taylor Field. And within the first, quarter, we get another punt blocked. And they're like, "Fajardo, you're in next series." And I'm like, "What?" And so I went in. I remember I did, like, at the end of the game, they kind of threw me in for a couple. And then the following week, we played BC at BC Place, and they're like, "You're our starting punt pro." And sure enough, their middle linebackers was Big Hill and Solly. And I'm thinking, 2 of the best linebackers in the league. And I'm watching these guys on punt return. And I will never forget my first rep. I went out there. And the way we called our protection sucked for me because I had to tell them who I was leaving in protection.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "All right, leave." I think his number at the time was like 44 or something. I was like, "Leave 44." And I just remember Big Hill going like, "Oh, you're going to leave me, quarterback?" And he came down and he just rocked me. And I probably would have bit my tongue off if I didn't wear a mouthpiece. And that right there, I was like, okay, I got to bring my weight a little bit. And so it was just a learning thing for me. I ended up being the punt guy the rest of the year. I hang my hat on no punts blocked throughout that entire season. I ended up getting hurt a little bit later in the year playing quarterback. And then the following year, sure enough, I'm in the Grey Cup as the starting personal punt protector. And so part of my journey and just part of the things I was willing to do in order to make the team and just help this team win any way I can and feel like I'm more a part of a team than sometimes when you're a quarterback and you're just standing there holding a clipboard and you're seeing everybody get to play. Everybody's playing special teams or they're playing offense, they're playing defense, and that quarterback never gets that opportunity. And so I was thankful for my time in special teams and short yardage because it allowed me to go on the field. And when we hit the locker room afterwards after a win, I felt really good about being a part of that win. And so it was something I'm very thankful I did because I probably would have been out of the league in a year if I didn't.
Well, at least you did better than Tim Tebow trying to play tight end for the Jaguars. I'll tell you that right now, because To try to block Adam Big Hill. Shout out to Adam, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you a brave soul for that one. That man, loose cannon out there. So you get to Sask, man. That quarterback room was pretty nice with Zach Kalaros and David Watford, but you end up getting the job at some point, and then you get the extension, but then you get to 2021. Now, for those that know and have been following the channel, know that really one of the first videos I reacted to for the CFL was the 2021 West Final. And I wanted to talk about that one because for me, it was a swan song of like falling in love with the writers. But we did talk before we recorded, man. I was really critical of you, and I want to ask, what happened that game? You guys got five. I think it was 5 defensive turnovers. You got the ball back many times, but you were playing in that cold at IG Field. Take us through that game and then leading into 2022, and also your decision not to return to the Riders.
Yeah, so basically, one, it wasn't an offensive friendly game in the first place. But if you look back at that game and you look at the turnovers that were created by our defense, most of them were in their end of the field, right? When they were either in the red zone or they've drove in the way. So a lot of times when we got the ball, it was almost like they had punts anyways. Like we'd get a pick maybe in the end zone. Yeah, it kept points off the board, but we still got to drive the entire field on the best. They were the best statistical defense in the CFL. And so the one turnover we got early on, I think we took it down to like the 15-20 yard line and we scored on that opening drive. And so it's something people ask me all the time. They ask me, about that. How do you get 5 turnovers? And we scored, I don't know, 13 or 17 points. But there's no excuse for getting 5 turnovers and not scoring more than 20 points. And honestly, in a game where you got to have it, but the one caveat to it was the fact that we had to drive the field on a really good defense every single time. And I felt like the crazy thing about it is we were a possession away, which we were driving on, and we score and we win that football game. I think we were down 4. It might have been like 13-17 at the time. And we were driving. Duke Williams makes an incredible catch on 3rd and long, and he gets a concussion. And so he's out. We had Mitch Picton have to come in and replace him, who was standing on the sideline in this negative 30-degree wind chill weather all game long. And now he's got to go in the final drive and try and go make a play against a really good defense that's been playing out there. And so I think it was Nick Taylor made a great break on the ball. And that's just kind of the way the season went for us that year. Is we were really good at finding ways to be in games. We just never found a way to finish those games. So thinking back on that game, it was one of those games that makes you sick to your stomach, because it was like you get in the locker room and you're like, if I could have just done this, if I could have just done this, if I could have just done this. And one of those games you want to immediately watch the film and be like, where did it all go wrong? And I think the biggest thing was in the CFL game, it's so field possession is such a big part of the game, and that we never really had, like, yes, we had 5 turnovers, but if you looked at the starting field position, I would assume we were somewhere around the 15, maybe 20-yard line for most of those drives, which, yeah, offensively, we got to go down and score or kick field goals or get points, but it's tough to do that against their defense. Second thing I think about in that game, I dropped a snap, which is very uncharacteristic in the red zone, and they recover it and took 3 points off the board for us. I overthrew Duke Williams on a wheel route who was wide open, and we just some miscommunication between us two. And that was, 2 plays. If you have back and you kick a field goal there, or maybe we score on that one, I think we would have went up 10 if I would have hit Duke Williams on that touchdown, and then maybe 13 if we would have not fumbled the ball in red zone in field goal position. So just a couple of things that I made mistakes on, and it weighs on me even to this day. But going into 22 season, I was very optimistic. I was very excited. I thought the biggest thing that hurt my career was I got my first opportunity to start in 2019, and I played really well, and I was excited for that opportunity, and COVID hit. And it was something where almost every guy around the league had starter experience for multiple games and multiple years. And I was a guy coming off my first year, and I kind of lost a lot of that momentum, a whole year off. And then I had to find a way, what did I need to do in my off season that was different? What did I need to do in the season that was a little bit years prior to just kind of lean on and just understand? And so I think it pulled me back, a couple steps in my career. And took me some growing pains in 2021 and obviously 2022 to really find my footing and be who I want to be and figure out what I want to do as a starting quarterback in my offseason and during the season, and how I want to emulate my game. And so those are the things that I really, really think about. What would have happened if there was a 2020 season? Where would I be at this point? So, and then in 2022, you missed the playoffs. It's just one of those things. It's unfortunate. We went to back-to-back West Finals, and then we have one rough year, and I didn't play to my best standard, and my knee was. I should have sat more games than I did. I missed one game that year due to COVID, but I wish I would have just taken 2 or 3 weeks, let my knee fully heal, and then just focus on football instead of trying to gut it out, be this hero for the team. But when you're not winning games, you want to do everything you can to help teams win the football game. And it just was one of those years that wasn't my year. And then the offseason hit and kind of writing was on the wall, and they wanted to go a different direction at the quarterback position, which rightfully so. I understood. I didn't play very well. We missed the playoffs. And as we talked about before, it's a fishbowl, and there's a lot of pressure on that football team to perform well. And if you don't perform well, somebody's got to kind of be sacrificed for it. And I was one of those guys, but it all happens for a reason. And when I was in that season, it was so hard on me mentally, physically, just to give everything you got and lose football games. Give everything you got, lose football games. But one of the bright spots, honestly, in that in that year, was my son being born. And if my son Luca isn't born in 2021, I don't know what kind of mental spiral it would have taken on me. It was awesome for me to have my wife, to have my son, just to come home to every day, even when things weren't great. And going into that offseason of 2022, not knowing what the future held for me, contemplated retiring, and sat down, talked with my wife, and we worked through a lot of things. And she said, that's not the way we're going to go out. And she's a competitor just like I am. And so super excited about that opportunity, just a fresh start. And sometimes as an athlete, all you need is a fresh start and someone who believes in you. And I felt that in Coach Moss. And sure enough, you fast forward 6 months after free agency, and there I was hoisting the Grey Cup over my head, and really proud of the work that I put in and the mental work I also did in the offseason.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there, right?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And you did. And my one of the things I was going to piggyback on was how you handled it. And we all know what it's like to be the guy. It's tough. It's tough for someone to be starting the number one QB, and you coming off the back-to-back West Finals and then having a tough season that you guys had. I even said, like, after the BC game, you guys were the most balanced team. And then to go on the streak that y'all had where you guys lost the games and everything like that. But how you handled it, and to know that you contemplated retiring, like, before it even really got started. Like, you got your Grey Cup, even though you weren't the starter, it seemed like you still feel like you had unfinished business. And man, that says a whole lot about your character as a not just as a player, but you rely on your faith, but being consistent. And man, for young folks, I want them to understand, man, hey, there's always another opportunity out there. Am I right?
Absolutely. And that's the biggest thing. Like, when the walls are caving in around you, it's so easy to feel like you're being suffocated. But if you just look around, there's going to be a door open somewhere, even though those walls are caving in. You just have to find it, and you got to put in the work to find it. It's not just going to all of a sudden, oh, here's the door. You got to take this exit here to get out of it. It's going to put you through some tough things and test your character, test your discipline, see if you're consistent, like you talked about, see if you show up every day when you're losing football games, see if you're the same guy in the locker room, even though you're losing football games and you're not playing well and you're hearing the outside noise. Like, how do you interact with fans? Are you all of a sudden short with the fans and not giving them the time of day? And that was something I never wanted to become. And I made one slip up in my character in my career, and to this day, it still haunts me. And it was that Calgary game when I was very infuriated with our receivers, and I said some things that I shouldn't have said, and I still get flack to this day, and that still weighs heavy on my heart. Like, I never want to do that again, and never want to speak the way I spoke after that game. And because I've had some conversations with a lot of receivers after that, and just hurt them, knowing that you're saying one thing to them, and then all of a sudden you say another thing to the media, and that's just not the right time, right place. And so I made a vow to myself personally that I'll never do anything like that ever again, because of just how detrimental it was, not only for me, but also for my teammates and being a leader and guys around you. So that's something that weighs on to me this day, that, as a leader in this locker room for the Owls, I'll never be that guy. I want to show up consistently for them no matter what happens, whether we're on a 4-game losing streak like we were last year or an 8-game winning streak. I want to be that same guy for them. And that's something Coach Moss has showed me. And a lot of people give Coach Moss flack for his passion and his excitement and sometimes his anger, but he just cares a lot about the game. But I will tell you this, Coach Moss in a locker room is the same guy no matter what happens. He's going to love you up no matter if you're throwing 4 touchdowns for him or throwing 4 picks for him. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to play for him as a head coach, because I knew if he gave me that stamp as his starting quarterback, we were going to ride through it together. No matter how bad it got, we were going to ride through it, and he would give me a full season as the starting quarterback. And that meant a lot for me. And so I was extremely excited to resurface with Coach Moss. But yeah, I've learned a lot being thrown into the limelight so quickly, where I wasn't used to being a starter and dealing with media every single day and stuff like that. And so there was a lot of things I learned, and a lot of things I'm very thankful for, that I feel like I wouldn't have learned or wouldn't have become the man I am today if I didn't spend my time that I had in Regina and Saskatchewan. Because without it, like I said, I wouldn't be the man today. And I know for damn sure I wouldn't be sitting here saying I'm a Grey Cup winning quarterback without going through those 4 years, if you count COVID, in Saskatchewan. It just taught me so much about how to be a franchise quarterback, how to interact with people, how to deal with pressure, how to deal with outside noise, how to deal with success. And so I'm extremely thankful for my time there and all the people who continue and support me, because, after the Grey Cup, I had over 500 something messages and text messages, and there's a lot of relationships I built in Saskatchewan and a lot of people I care a lot about. And they were riding with me to the end and just texting me and thankful for me and just rooting me on and the support, even though I'm wearing different colors. That's what you talked about, the CFL. That's what the NFL doesn't have. It does not have that. It doesn't have other opposing teams texting or commenting on a player and supporting him wearing another team. If you go to another team, and you've seen it in this free agency, you go to another team in the NFL, you're getting death threats, you're getting negative comments, you're getting, hey, you're dead to me. I saw something to Saquon Barkley. Like, yeah, there's going to be a handful of those, but I would say majority of the people that reached out and supported me from Saskatchewan were just truly happy for me to see me be successful.
See, I like that you said you owned it. You owned that where you were wrong, where a lot of times we hear the dynamic between quarterbacks and receivers, it's tough. It's a tough give or take thing, because if a receiver shows up a quarterback, he gets lambasted. But then if a quarterback shows up his receivers, it's portrayed as he's passionate, he's fiery. You see a double-edged sword, like two different ends of the spectrum. Like example would be like when AB Antonio Brown say what you want to after football, whatever, right? That's that.
Yeah, hey.
But you see how he showed up Ben Roethlisberger. In a way, it was passion, but then Ben would not back him. Ben would say things on his podcast, or he would say things about him to the media, and it ruined what could have been a potentially Super Bowl winning team. But then when Tom Brady would say things about his, like on the sideline, it was on the sideline where he would curse everybody out and say things, and it was labeled as he's fiery, he's passionate, he loves the game. But for you, and also with like it kind of ties into you and Jason Moss. I didn't really know much about Coach Moss. All I really heard as I was coming around more was his stint with Edmonton, and I guess he threw his helmet and knocked over some Gatorade stuff, and it was like meme forever in CFL lore how angry he was. But you both have that fire, and that made magic for you guys this season. And as we push on to talk about Montreal, I would like to say one thing to you that I want to kind of dead this opinion that people had early on in the season. And I want you to educate me real quick.
Okay.
Two things. One, did you take a lot of 5 to 7 step drops? And did you feel like when you did take in your drop back, did you feel like it took forever for the routes to develop and that's why you took a lot of sacks? Or was it, hey, I just didn't do my best? That's the first question.
Okay. Yeah. So a couple things about that. First off, the Moss thing, like you said, we're two competitors. So it was funny because when I signed in Montreal, the stigma was like, they hate each other. They hate each other. And me and Moss were so damn close during the entire time he was in Sask. And the things that we talked about behind closed doors outside of football, talking about families and introducing each other to each other's families, like our relationship and bond was so dang strong. But yeah, the TSN media would put us barking back and forth at each other because we're two fiery guys on the sideline, right? And there's times when I make a mistake and I don't think I'm wrong and he thinks I'm wrong and like I'm trying to defend myself and he's yelling, so then I'm yelling, and it's just like one of those things. But that's like, you get that with a great player coach. When you have respect for each other, there's no disrespect there. It's just us being very fiery and in the moment and competitors, and we want the best for our team. And so that's the biggest thing with that. So we always had a great relationship. So I just want to say that up first and foremost, that there was never any bad blood between me and Coach Moss. But to answer your question, so there was two unique studies that we did on why there was so many sacks early on in the year. The first one was we had a lot of long developing plays with a lot of young receivers that weren't used to the CFL. And so getting in and out of their breaks and running these certain routes that are so tailor-made to the CFL with first-year players was hard because they just didn't know exactly how to hit their waggle on time. They didn't know exactly what depth to get at. And as we got better and better and they got better, you'd see the timing was so much better. The second thing is my drop. So we did do a lot of 5 steps because of that. And you're dead on. And Coach Phil hits it on the nose again. But so my drop was too deep. And so we were doing a 5-step drop and I was too deep. And that has nothing to do with the offensive line. It has everything to do with me. I was pushing to about 11 and a half when the tackles are expected to be at 9.5, max 10. And so it's something I worked on every single day in practice of shortening my drop quicker and not so much depth. And so as soon as I started doing that, our sack numbers plummeted. Like you didn't see the 6 to 7 sacks. And so we can't come out and say that because we didn't want teams, we were working through it. We didn't want teams to know like, hey, all right, he's deep in his drop. So you can't come out and say it. And it's unfortunate because you can't protect the guys in front of you. But a way that I was telling it was like, look, all these sacks aren't on offensive line. There's plenty of sacks that are on the quarterback. And that's what it was. It was me being too deep and putting pressure on our tackles to have to guess where Cody's going to be at. Is he going to be at 9 here? Is he going to be at 10? Is he going to be at 11? And as soon as we figured that out, that was the biggest thing. The routes was one thing where the guys got better as they just went game by game. But the biggest, I think, trajectory upwards was that right there, was being at my spot and at my mark. And Coach AC and Coach Moss, they ripped me for like 3-4 weeks. And I was just taking drop after drop after drop and just trying to be consistent for them. And that was the biggest change, like I said. And here we are in the Grey Cup. And I think the boys gave up 1, maybe 2 sacks to the best defensive line in the league. And they got better. They got more confidence, but they got confidence because they knew exactly where I was going to be every single time. I'm glad we can talk like that. Cause it's funny, you guys were to me 2 of the game of the year candidates, in my opinion, which was the first time you played Toronto at home. That was a great game you guys had. But then when you played Winnipeg at home, that was the first time I saw they got some fight in them, because there was a difference when you watch your drop. You obviously, I'm not going to talk stupid and say, oh, you haven't seen your drop, but your drop back changed progressively over the weeks. It was less long strides where it felt like you were. It was weird because I watched you in SAS. I was like, he never really dropped like that. So I don't know if it was trying to get acclimated to the offense or the timing, but as you said, you worked on it. You got grilled for it. You owned it. And then it was shorter. It was a little shorter. It had rhythm to it. You were timing it on the screens, also on the slants. The Winnipeg game, that big play you guys had where I think it was single high. And then
I don't know if it was Austin or if it was Phil or Tyson, but I think it was a post, and he just
K-On, yeah.
Yeah, it was post, and it was the most beautiful throw. You stood in the pocket, you took it, and it even though you guys didn't win that one, it still was one of those moments like, wow, it's there. Cody's coming around. I didn't know if it was because AC was calling the plays or Jason was calling the plays. That was something I was skeptical about. Like, I thought there was a difference in like the play calling, because I thought when Jason called it, it was these long developing plays, but when AC called it, it was short, it was quick. You played to your strength, but that was my observation.
and from the inside, you know, they do a great job of sharing information with each other. And so it's not just one guy calling. Like, yes, Coach Moss is the one calling the plays to me, but there's a lot of insight, a lot of input, and Coach Moss trusts AC because why not? He's the legend that he is, right? And so there was a lot of that was like, hey, let's hit our back foot, get the ball out of our hand. Let's hit our back foot, get the ball out of our hand. I think Coach Moss's biggest strength and sometimes his biggest weakness is his brain. He is so damn football smart and so smart and football IQ that sometimes he masterminds this amazing play, and we got guys wide open down the field, but you just don't have that much time to hold on the ball. And so that was something Coach AC came in and really helped with the trajectory of our offense changing and just helping Coach Moss see it a different way. And in Sask, it was just Coach Moss being able to talk about the offense. There was none of that second input that he had. And so them working off each other is why I think that a lot of our offense got so much better throughout the year. And so early on, we lost Greg Ellingston in the second day of training camp. We lost Tyson Philpott day one of training camp. So we have a guy named Austin Mack, four-stringer, who nobody knew about. We have Tyler Sneed, a little white guy that nobody knew if he was going to even make the football team. K-On was K-On. We obviously knew what we had in K-On. We had Cole Speaker, who played one game the year before. And so those first couple games was these guys just getting their feet underneath them, just understanding the CFL game and how to make breaks and still getting to know me as a quarterback. It's not like we had multiple years prior throwing with each other. It's funny, going to Montreal, the guy I had the best rapport with, or the two guys I had the best rapport with, was Tuck and Hardy. Two guys that were Sask guys, right? And those guys are special teams demons. And it's funny when you were doing one-on-ones, like, man, rip the ball. I knew exactly where those guys would be. And I was still trying to learn the other guys. And there were some growing pains throughout the beginning part of the year. But by the end of the year, man, those receivers played out of their mind. It was so fun to watch those guys progress and learn the game and just go out and each and every week just give it everything they got. And if you look at the stat sheet, one thing that I'm proud of as a quarterback is those guys led the league in yards after catch.
Mm-hmm.
They got the ball and they did not care if there was 2, 3, 4 guys. You didn't see guys jumping out of bounds. You saw guys carrying dudes. You saw guys breaking tackles. They wanted to score every time they touched the ball. And when you see that as a quarterback, you're like, I'm going to get this guy the ball more because he's got a fire lit under him. And let's try to get him a touchdown. Let's try to get him a couple balls here and there. And it was tremendous to watch those guys just flourish throughout the season.
I love that, man. People got to realize with CFL, and correct me if I'm wrong, that coming out the waggle, and then it's the waggle, coming out the waggle on your release, and the top of that damn route. How you sell that and what you do, it's imperative where you're going to get space or you're going to be getting hit and you're going to drop it. So that's just my view of it, but you know it better than anybody else. So,
well, you're exactly right. The waggle one, the biggest thing for waggle and for a quarterback when you talk to your receivers, is you want them to hit the line of scrimmage when the ball's being snapped. Mm-hmm. If they're 3 yards in the line of scrimmage when I snap the ball, their route is going to take 3 yards longer to get to their depth of 15, 10 yards, whatever it is. And so now I'm holding on the ball a little bit longer because they didn't hit their waggle on time. Right. And then all of a sudden you get these American guys who have never waggled before. And what you talked about, the top of their route, they're coming in with so much more speed at the top of their route. It takes them longer to decelerate, get in and out of breaks early on in the year. And then all of a sudden they start understanding that you can mix up the way you run your waggle. You can go with 80%, 100%, 50%, and you can make those all look different to get in and out of your breaks better. And that's just something receivers just need to go out and feel, and you got to get the reps with your quarterback. But you're not going to be able, like in off-season training, as a rookie, you're not going to be able to implement that. There's no way you're going to be able to implement that. You can think you're doing it right, But until you get a quarterback and you get the coaches there and you get to see veteran guys do it, that's when you truly understand, like, okay, I figured out the waggle. I figured out the receiving game as a CFL player.
You see it on the all. I've seen a little bit more. Like I've gotten more access to the all 24 film, seeing it. Man, when you see it from the full field, from the side, from the TV view, it looks like all they're all running is go routes. It's not go routes. It's sophisticated, but it's quirky how the routes are done. And boy, y'all had a nice little run because we're gonna go into the playoff run, man. You knock off Scamilton. Well, correction, Hamilton. I'm working on not saying Scamilton, but screw it, I'm gonna say it. You beat Scamilton and at home, which was great to see that. The atmosphere looked really, really like loud. And oh my God, did they have the horns?
I'll say this. I am pro horns because it's finally on my side. I've been anti-horns for a long time because I've always been on the opposite side of it, right? And you can't hear anything. It's hard to communicate. But I think it's worse for the TV copy. That's probably where it's the worst for. In the stadium, it gets loud. But honestly, our fans were incredible all year. I want to say we had 3, maybe 4 games that had delays, and delays longer than 30 minutes. They were like an hour, hour and a half. And our fans didn't leave. They came back. They were loud. That Winnipeg game we talked about earlier, that had a long delay. Mm-hmm. In the beginning part of the year, we had quite a bit of delays. But our fans, that atmosphere in the playoff game, you're like, all right, Montreal football's back. And you felt that. And that's something that us players, we rode that wave because we were playing a Hamilton team that we beat 4 times if you count the preseason game. We're going on the 5th time we're playing them. It's extremely hard to beat a team 5 times. They were hungry. They were hosting the Grey Cup. There was a lot for them to play for. And so we were going into it with feeling pretty good about ourselves, but knowing that this wasn't going to be no easy contest. And we needed our fans to make it hard on them. And they did that absolutely. And so that first game was just great for a lot of our young guys to get playoff CFL atmosphere. Because it's one thing to be in the regular season. You got 18 games. Yeah, okay, we won. Yeah, okay, we lost. We can look forward to next week. You get in that playoffs, there ain't no next week. You got to win to earn your next week. And so winning that first game helped that snowball momentum start. And guys, you could see it in the locker room. Guys started to believe a little bit. Guys started to be a little bit more chippier, like a little bit happier and excited about that opportunity against a Toronto team that we took down to the wire twice. And the only other one we kind of got blown out was we had 5 fumbles in the first half at their place and just never was close. Austin Mack, and I give him crap to this day, gets ejected in the first quarter. And him being your number 1 receiver, you can't lose your number 1 receiver in the first quarter against the defending Grey Cup champs and expect to be competitive. And so Chandler Worthy came in and he played his mind. He played out of his mind, and it was awesome to see him there. But when you lose your guy, Austin Mack, who you got a great rapport with, it's tough. And so we were excited about that Toronto game against a team that we felt like was going to go into this game with less momentum and less confidence than what we had. Yes, they were 16-2, but they didn't play a meaningful football game since game that we had with them in the middle of the late season. They went like 5 weeks without like a meaningful football game. So our message in the locker room was take them to the fourth quarter. If it gets tight, they're not used to that. If we can get it to the fourth quarter and it's a tight game, they're not used to it. Everyone knows what happens. Our defense, it was our defense, and playing like the Baltimore Ravens with Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, and just the way that they went out and manhandled that game. And a lot of people ask me, they're like, well, Cody did nothing in that game. Honestly, that game was way more pressure-packed as a quarterback than the Grey Cup game, when you got to go out there and you just have to not make a mistake. You just have to stay on the field. Don't throw a pick. Don't give them any momentum. Just go out there, run the offense, score points when you have to score points, and play the field position game. And that was an extremely challenging game for me to go out there and not try to do too much when your offense feels like it's not doing too much. But our defense was playing so great, we didn't want to put them in a bad spot in a short field for Toronto to capture some momentum. And so we were just playing complementary football.
See, I've told many times I was in Winnipeg for the West Final, and they had it up on the big screen outside. And from kickoff all the way till you took that knee, I was proud of the defense, but same time I was proud to see what you were doing, because people think it's so easy to manage a game. It's not. where you have to make sure you're obviously and let me fill in if you want to. I just don't want to mess up.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to, okay, we're going to run it here. You're literally play by play. Some teams are just, we're going to go by series. We got our openers. We got this. We got that. Y'all, that was the most calculated game you guys played as an offense all year. And I loved seeing it. You were carving up a strong defense that didn't really get the credit it deserved as far as like, yeah, Chad did his thing in the offense, AJ and all these guys on offense. And that defense was, that secondary is just as nasty as what Winnipeg had, what BC had. And for you to just play your game and going down to that last, I remember that last attack at the red zone that in the fourth quarter, and Antwi scored. He got stopped. And then the next play, I was like, there's no way they really just blew them out.
Well, I'm going to start calling you Coach Phil the Guru because you hit it right on the nose again. Like that as a quarterback, I much rather play, almost from behind where I got that nothing to lose mentality as opposed to going out there and being like, man, I just don't want to make a mistake. Because then you start being a little bit tighter. You start missing throws, or you start trying to, not do what the offense is telling you to do and just check the ball down. But there's a way you have to do it to facilitate the game. And then when you get the opportunity, which we were down in the red zone, Antwi's touchdown was huge, but prior to that, we got a huge stop, a turnover by our defense, and we were on the 10-yard line. And if we kicked a field goal, it would only been a 2-possession game. But if we scored a touchdown, it would have been a 3-possession game. And they brought zero coverage. Snead runs his hot route. I put on Snead. The guy misses his tackle, and he scores. And that right there was the moment when I was like, our offense just did enough. And there's no way they're scoring 3 touchdowns on our defense the way that they're playing. And as on the opposing side with Chad, I've been in those situations where you've turned the ball over multiple times, and now you're in that carefree atmosphere, and you're like, I'm just going to chuck it down the field. And then one thing leads to another, and then all of a sudden you're back in the game, and the other team's like, what happened? So our defense played incredibly well throughout the entire game. But you're right. I told the offense in the locker room, I said, the statistics aren't going to show it, but I am so damn proud of the way that we played that football game. Like, people are going to look at the statistics and be like, oh, their defense and special teams won the game. And they did, rightfully so. They definitely were a huge reason why. But our offense did exactly what we needed to do in order to win that football game. And at their place, a place that they didn't lose to all year. They didn't lose at home. Like you said, their defense was ranked 1 or 2 in every single category. And they did not get the credit that they deserved. They had a tremendous secondary, great linebacking core, and guys who can rush the passer. And so offensively, we knew we had our hands full, and everybody was talking about our defense because we were number 1 in a lot of statistics. But that Toronto team was number 1 in a lot of statistics as well. And so we knew going into that as an offense, it's going to be a defensive battle. It's going to be a field position battle. It's going to be a turnover battle. If we can win the turnover margin, if we can win the field position battle, and if we can end each drive with a kick, whether it's a punt, a field goal, or PAT, we'll have a chance to win that football game.
I love it. Before we get into the Grey Cup, I will say 2 things. One, people focused on Mark's interception at the Reds, pick 6. Obviously, amazing play. It was the one where Chad threw across his body that I felt broke their back. Because don't ever throw across your body unless you for sure you gonna hit that. The other thing I did see, I like that you didn't just focus on your hots. I like that you didn't just focus in on the one with your first choice. You carved it up well. Kudos to you, brother.
Appreciate that. That's big time. Yeah, I appreciate that. Coming from Coach Phil, the Guru.
I ain't no guru, brother. I just learned. So we get to the Grey Cup. Now, I know I'm going to ask the question because everybody, it went many in the CFL community. It went viral. What the hell did you say? There's been conflicting things about what you said in the locker room about it was fuck them, watch us or whatever. What did you say, man? Please tell me what you said and please go into that Grey Cup.
All right. So for the kids watching, please cover your ears. I said, fuck you, just watch. because and what's really cool is we had a camera crew following us throughout the
Yeah.
last part of the season, and so I think those are going to get dropped in April, of just kind of those I think it's like 4 episodes, and a lot of people will see the speech like they posted something online, but they'll see a legitimate part of the speech, and basically what it was everybody counted us out, counted me out all year, and you're going to watch now. Just watch tomorrow what's going to happen. And I felt like it was a time and a place where I needed to speak up. And I'm not a rah-rah guy. I'm a guy who just shows up. Austin Mack said it the best. I might be the Kirk Cousins of the CFL. I just go out and I
Facts.
show up and I just play my game. But I felt like everything all week was Winnipeg, 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 Winnipeg. And rightfully so, because they were going to their 4th straight Grey Cup. And there was like, Montreal shouldn't even be here, but they got hot at the right time. They're not a Grey Cup winning team, yada, yada, yada. And I felt like it was the time to show the team a little bit of the passion I got that's burning inside of me. And at that moment, it's funny, there was a lot of people who were in tears, who had goosebumps. And I know, and I'm not going to say who, but there was a handful of upper management people that walked out of that room and said, we will not lose that Grey Cup after hearing the speech. And when you hear that, it gives me chills to this day. And it was something that was just weighing on my heart. And I was thankful that Coach Moss opened the floor. He said, look, floor's open to anybody who's been here or anybody who wants to say anything. And there was a lot of guys who went up there and said a lot of great things. And unfortunately, my speech overshadowed some of those things because there was a lot of guys that went up there that I was excited to hear from and just hear their knowledge. But I felt like, and I ended up being the last guy. And Coach Moss, it was funny. He's like, does anyone want to follow that up? And everyone's like, hell no. And so it was funny how I just kind of like bookmarked it. But going on from that moment forward, I just knew I was going to lay everything on the field. I was going to give it everything I had. And at the end of the game, look up at the scoreboard and see whether we won or lost. But knowing when I walked back to that locker room that the tank was going to be empty. There was going to be nothing left in the tank. You were going to have to pull me off that field on a stretcher to get me out of that game. And so that was kind of the buildup, and that was kind of the thing behind the speech, was just kind of hearing it all week about how we shouldn't have been there, or how we didn't deserve to be there, or we weren't the best team. And so it just was, and then throughout the entire season of being picked 9th to start the year, and something that really lit a fire under me. And I haven't really spoke this out, publicly, but I'm giving a Coach Phil exclusive here. The Montreal Alouettes finished the season 3rd in 2022. They took Toronto to the wire in the East Final. Yes, there was a lot of things that happened in the off season. There was a lot of turnover, but we retained a lot of guys in Montreal defensively, and a lot of guys offensively. And thinking about our offensive line, really one of the big major changes was me and Coach Moss, but really was me. And to go from the 3rd best team in the CFL to the 9th best team, I took that personal. I really did. And that Michael Jordan meme that says, I took that personal. I really did.
Yeah.
I said, okay, well, I was the one big change signing, and that drops us from the number 3 best team to the number 9 best team. I'm going to have to prove it this year. I'm going to have to go out and I'm going to have to prove it. And so I had that weighing on my heart the whole year. And when things got tough, it was weighing on my heart. Like, man, are we even going to make the playoffs? But I'm like, nope, I've committed to this. I'm going to show everybody what I had. And so that was the biggest thing for me when the media came out and picked us 9th. It wasn't the fact that we were 9th. It was the fact that the year prior, this team was 3rd, and very little changes in terms of big players coming in. And yeah, you lose Gino. Yeah, you lose Trevor. But really, it was me that I felt like it was personally why they picked 9th, is because I was a guy who didn't make the playoffs the year before, was exiled by the writers, and he shouldn't be a starting quarterback in this league, and they'll be lucky if he makes it through 3 games without being benched, yada, yada, yada. And I took that personal, and it fired me throughout the entire season.
First, I wouldn't say Kirk Cousins. I would say more Kurt Warner, but that's
Hey, I'll take that.
I will say that when I saw the clip of you saying what you said, kids, don't repeat Uncle Cody. It was fire, and it was the tone. And the guys I've talked to, man, they knew that they knew y'all And they knew it was y'all time to go do something and go win. You had the pieces, you had to go do it. But at the same time, all week and even near right when y'all beat Toronto, I heard people say, would you consider Winnipeg a dynasty when they beat Montreal? And I was like, now I've been homing for the defense. That's my boys. I got a lot of my boys on the defense. Like, nah, y'all go see. Y'all go see what I've been talking about. But seeing you out there, and you have a tell. I don't know if you notice this. When you start running, oh, you're feeling it. It ain't pretty, but it was one of the runs that you had in the game. It was maybe unnoticeable, but it reminded me, and I ain't kissing your ass or nothing. Don't think I'll never kiss none of y'all asses. But you remember they play it forever. When John Elway got to the goal line, I was like, oh, Cody feeling it now. Cody out here talking his shit. But what that last drive, man, you guys get to the red zone. You ain't got to tell the player nothing, but what was the look? What were you looking for? And was Tyson the first option? Because DeMario was playing off. Why he was playing off, I still don't understand in the red zone, but that's just me. What was going through your mind at that moment, and what was the look you were looking for?
Yeah, so this is something I'm very thankful for my years in Sask because of all the times I played against Winnipeg. And I knew they had almost a tell, or I knew they had a tendency. And their tendency was after big plays, especially in the red zone, like if you make a play and you're in the red zone, they tend to bring cover zero. They tend to bring out all-out pressure, bring one more than you can protect, and they're trying to get those yardage back. They're trying to get a sack, big play, change momentum. So in the back of my mind, I was thinking about that. I was like, well, they might come out and come zero. So Philpott was my hot on that play. The real play was a post corner to Sneed on the other side. So we tried to throw a post earlier in the game to Austin Mack, and their DB made an incredible play. We knew watching tape he played the post so dang well. He baseball turned and played the post really well, and he picked me off earlier in the game. And so I talked about Coach Moss. I was like, if we get an opportunity, let's run that post corner. Let's run the post corner. I think he's going to oversell on the post. We'll be able to hit an easy corner. Sure enough, he calls that play, and I'm like, all right. I get up to the line of scrimmage, and I'm like, free safety is a little bit low. They're probably bringing cover zero here. Now, Houston was off, but he was inside, which he's supposed to do in that cover zero, that he's supposed to be inside. And 4 weeks prior, Philpott ran a post and did not tack inside leverage, and I threw like 3 out of 4 picks in practice because of it. Earlier in the year, we played Winnipeg, and Philpott ran a post, and he took a high angle instead of crossing face. I ended up throwing an interception. A lot of growing pains. He ran his absolute best route that I've ever seen him run. He attacked leverage. He crossed his face. He kept his angle nice and flat so he can protect the ball. And at that point, I'm like, well, I only have one read because I don't have time to wait on my post corner and rip the ball. I remember Houston dove in front of it, and I couldn't really tell like if it was a catch or not from my vantage point. So I just kind of listened to the crowd. And in a Grey Cup, it's funny because you get some people cheering for one side, some people cheering for the other side. When you're in the regular season, you're at a home, you can tell you throw a ball and there's an eruption on away. You're like, I just threw a pick, you know? So this was hard. I couldn't tell. I was like, and so I'm trying to look. And then sure enough, I see the ref stick his hands up. And I was like, I immediately looked at the clock because I know who they have on the other side. They got a man by Zach Caleros who has been the top quarterback in this league the last handful of years. And I looked and I saw 13 seconds and I said, oh boy, that's still a lot of time in the CFL. And what people I think forget is the extra point that Cote had to come in and make to turn it into a 4-point game was huge. So many people were celebrating the touchdown and we're excited about the touchdown. And a lot of people were trying to celebrate me with on the sideline. And I'm like, can we just watch the extra point? Because it's a huge difference, 3 in a 4-point game. And Cote goes up there, nails, hits it. And then I'm like, all right, we can start celebrating, but let's not celebrate too hard because we got to see that clock hit 0. Sure enough, they tried to put their punter out there. He gets smoked by Bev, which I feel bad for the guy. He kind of gets thrown out there. And then our boy Stubbs tries to catch the ball, but I think it's only fitting for my man, the Quebec native, to go and finish the game with the ball in his hands. It was just one of those special moments, one of those things where I think down the road, I hope somebody writes a book, or we'll have that 4-episode thing, which I'm glad it was documented, because nobody will believe that the 9th-ranked Montreal Alouettes went toe-to-toe with the Giants, that dynasty squad in Winnipeg in the Grey Cup. And it's something that, it puts a stamp on your career. It puts a stamp on your life. It makes you happier when you wake up in the morning. In the off season, it makes your off season grind feel a little bit less, as opposed to, there's been many years prior where I lost the last game of the year, and I lost by hitting a goalpost. I lost by a third down stop. And to be on the winning side of that, and to go into an off season winning your last football game, it really just put a stamp on my season, and just got me some momentum going into this next 2024 season.
Probably one of the more beautiful things, and I'll say this real quick though. I thought Houston was going bat pedal, drive down, and he was going to pull a Malcolm Butler, but to get Tyson in position to be able to get that ball, beautiful. Now, I will say though, probably I was struggling with what picture to use for the thumbnail. This is a little behind the scenes thing for y'all. So I did the thumbnail. Absolutely love the thumbnail I did for you, and I was trying to, like, what picture do I want to use? And everybody had their kids. I loved every picture that all the players had with their kids, whatnot. But now that I think about it, the one that I really wanted to use was the one with you and your son. Because now that you mentioned Drew Brees was one of your favorite quarterbacks growing up, you see it all the time, the moment with him and his son with the headphones on at the Super Bowl. I was like, dang, now I'm thinking about it, and when we're talking, I'm like, dang, he did have a Drew Brees moment like that. After they talked about Drew and said his arm was done and Miami shunned him from not signing him in free agency, he goes to New Orleans, and then it's weird, the parallels. So I want you to know that, man, that was a beautiful moment. Stash Fajardo out there doing his thing. Don't ever do that again. Don't.
The question is, I kind of have to, right?
You do, but
it's a playoff thing, but
there's
a lot of magic in that stash. And the unfortunate thing is, if we unfortunately lose a playoff game and I do have the mustache, it's like, well, it wasn't the mustache. I would love for that mustache to just be retired with, hey, it was a Grey Cup thing. It was a mustache, and it goes down in history, and then we never do it again. But I think the pressure from my teammates, who all were kind of bought in on it, the fans, people loved it, and it was just something that was a little quirky, and something that Ricky Ray did his whole career, and something I learned from him, and that was something I wanted to be a part of. And sure enough, the one year I grow a mustache for a playoff run, we win a Grey Cup. So it's got me thinking, the years prior, maybe if I would have just had that dirty stash on, maybe I would have found my way into getting the Rough Riders their well-deserved Grey Cup to those fans.
Turn a crop duster into a 787, brother. I ain't mad at you. So as we wind down, man, we're going to get up out of here, man. My last 2 questions for you, short and sweet. First one, obviously, the goal, obviously, repeat. How are you feeling?
I feel great. If you look around the league, the top teams that win games, the majority of the time, they get decimated in free agency. And what Danny and Coach Moss were able to do, we lost a couple players and some really good players, but we were able to hold together a team that just came off winning a Grey Cup. And if you look on across the province to Toronto, you look at a team that was 16-2, and they got absolutely decimated in free agency. And that's what happens, though. When you win football games, guys want to get paid, rightfully so. And so they're going to go to teams that give them more money. And the fact that Danny was able to retain as many guys as we could, and losing guys, like Stanback, that's a huge loss for us. And not only just what he does on the field, but just being the Montreal native that he became, and that off-the-field player that everybody knew, like just losing a guy like that, and Austin Mack going to the NFL, and Lambeau going to the NFL. Like, those guys, you're happy for them because they go to the NFL. Yeah, Stanback who goes to opposing team, it hurts a little bit more because we're going to have to play a pissed off Stanback, and that's never a good thing. But I will say this: the guys that we lost, we didn't bolster other teams' CFL rosters. We lost guys to the NFL. Yeah, some really good football players, but we weren't like some of those teams that bolstered other teams in our conference or even just in the league. We didn't make their team CFL teams better. We did a couple of them, but we retained a lot of our guys, and so that's what I'm excited about. For us to come together as quickly as we did in last season, and to be able to hit day one of training camp already a tight-knit group. And Coach Tressman said it best: your team changes whenever you bring in one new guy. You bring in one new guy, you're got a whole new team. And people are like, what does he mean by that? And I believe that. You bring in one guy, you usually got a whole different team. But if your core players are the same, you have an idea and you can speed up the process of those young guys to understand what it takes to win, what it takes to be a Montreal Alouette. So the goal is to repeat. The goal, and I've said it all off season, the goal is not to be a one-hit wonder. We don't want to be that team that, they got lucky, they got hot at the right time, yeah, they won the Grey Cup, and then you go out and you miss the playoffs. Like, our goal is to be that team that every time you see the Montreal Alouettes on your schedule, you say, we got our hands full and we got to play our best football to win this football game and go out and defend the Grey Cup. Everybody's going to talk about whatever article they write, whatever they want to say going into it. Coaches are going to say, we got the defending Grey Cup champs coming in here. And that you got to take pride in that. You got to take pride in defending that. And I do. And my off season has been lit on fire because of it, because I want to go out there and I want to continue to prove all the people that still don't believe in me, but also just all the people that support me. Like I said last year, it's the biggest mental change I made that helped me out was going out there and playing for the people that truly believe in me. And it put so much less pressure on me and allowed me to go out there and play freely.
Well, if you can make it through a training camp, because Austin told me the story about the training camp y'all had. What's it called? Fleur, something, Leaf Fleur, wherever it was, like an hour away. And I heard about the rain was coming down, man. If that don't build up a team, I don't know what will.
Coach Mott, he calls us the postmen. We will be out in everything but lightning because we can't be out there in lightning.
And
honestly, the 2 days, like you said, it's 2 practices back to back. It ain't no 2 a days. It's just one long practice, but we call it 2 practices. 15 minutes to grab your fruit, grab some water, right back out there. But we've been, in the CFL, people have been doing that. And Austin Mack was a first-year player, so it really shocked him. But Tressman was the first one who brought that. And I remember when Tressman took over in 2017, was like the first time we did it. And I was like, holy cow. But as a player, I will tell you this, I'd much rather do that than split it up, because all of a sudden now you go eat, you go lay back in the dorm, and then your muscles get all stiff, and then it's like, I got to get everything going again. I'm already warmed up, I'm already primed. Let me just go out and let me just continue to get my reps in. And then you watch all the film in the evening, and then you learn so much because it's rep after rep after rep. I am a big fan of it. My first couple of years, I was like, this is hard, but I'm a big fan of it. It makes a lot of sense why we do it. But yeah, we're the postman. We'll be out there in any weather. And last year, we practiced in every single weather. Our last practice of the year before the Grey Cup, it was dumping snow. And that was the last one we needed. We had the rain, we had the wind, we had the heat, we had the snow, we had everything. And that's the character of our team.
Well, more harken Keanu Reeves in the replacements, but I give you go with the postman if you want to. My last thing, man, and this is another teammate question that they wanted me to ask you. If you could give advice to any young quarterback right now that sees this, what would be the first thing you tell them?
Believe in yourself. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to tell you you can't do this, you're not strong enough, you're not tall enough, you don't have the arm strength, you don't have the footwork. You can work and make things better, but you have to start believing in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is. And that's the number one thing about a quarterback. When you walk into a locker room and you see a quarterback who believes in himself, guys will rally behind you. You get in a locker room and you start doubting yourself, you start questioning your ability, questioning if you can make it, if you are that guy, people are going to be like, I don't want to follow that guy. And so my biggest thing, and I train quarterbacks here locally in Reno, Nevada, and that's the biggest thing I tell them. I said, look, you're going to go through ups and downs. People are going to tell you can't. People are going to tell you can. But the person that needs to believe it and truly believe it is yourself. And so that's my message, is believe in yourself, and then F you, just watch to everybody else.
You need to trademark that. I mean, hey, I see what Carson Strong can do at 6'10". So if he's learning from you, he gonna be all right. So Cody, I want to thank you so much, man, for doing this. Thank you for coming on Deep in the Game, man. I really appreciate you. And I will be in Montreal. We link up. Love to have a conversation with you, man. Just chop it up again, man. Thank you again. And best luck to you in the offseason. We'll be in touch, man.
I appreciate it. Coach Phil, the guru, man. That's your new name to me. You got it. You got it all figured out. I love it, man. And thanks for letting me be on the show. It's awesome to be in something like this because you like the name of your show. You really dive into the game. And sometimes you get asked questions and it's just the surface area. And the fans are yearning for that like deep talk about, you know, the waggle and in and out of breaks and those kind of things, and are talking about my drop and being too deep on my drop. Like those are the things I never get to express because nobody really asks the question, and I'm not just going to come out and just say it. So I'm thankful, and I had a lot of fun, and time flew by. So I appreciate you, and hope to be on the show again sometime in the future.
Hey, open door policy for everybody. Come on here, man. You are more than welcome, and hopefully we can chop it up, man. I was thinking, you know, when I come to Montreal, I guess I can announce it now to everybody since Cody got me giving truth serum. I'm going to be doing a little thanks to Dominique Rhymes, the city boy. He gave the idea of kind of like y'all pick the best restaurant in your town. We sit down and we just talk and we rap, man. And we can break down the game more. That's what I want.
I like that.
Eat some food.
Gosh, that's a great idea.
We're gonna do it. And I would love it when I come to Montreal. I want to try and get you, Lamb, Reggie, and one more offensive guy. And we just have lunch and shoot the shit, man.
You let me know, man. I'm a fan of yours now, so we're locked up. We're linked up for life. Hey, and it's okay to still be critical on me. I need people. I don't want my flowers. I want people to be critical on me because I need that little bit of that extra motivation going into the year. So if you're critical, hey, nothing personal.
It's never personal, man. That's why I was kind of, when you said you wanted to come on, I was like, I'm gonna own what I said, but I'm gonna make sure I have the facts. But thanks again.
Hey, I haven't played my best ball at times, and so call me out when I don't, and I appreciate that.
You know how to get a hold of me if I'm talking crazy about you.
Appreciate you. All right, Coach Phil.
All right, brother. Take it easy, everybody.
I'm gonna tell you the truth.
The man's in the house.
So crazy.
The man's in the house.
I'm gonna tell you the truth.
The man's in the house.
So crazy.
The man's in the house.